7:42 a.m. A Georgia diner. A waitress named Ariel Brooks smiled at the wrong billionaire. Elliot Crestwell didn't just insult her. He threw cash at her feet and demanded she kneel. In front of everyone. Pick it up like the help you are. She refused. What Elliot didn't know? The quiet man watching from the corner booth wasn't just any customer. He was Harold Hawk Whitmore, the billionaire Elliot came to meet. The man holding his $3 billion deal. And when Hawk stood up, he didn't just walk away. He tore the contract apart, page by page. $3 billion destroyed. Because of how Elliot treated one waitress. This isn't just about revenge. It's about what happens when dignity meets power and arrogance meets karma. Tell us, would you have stood your ground or stayed silent? Drop your answer below. And subscribe. You won't believe what she does next. 7:42 a.m. Maple Ridge Diner, rural Georgia. Steam curled from coffee mugs. Forks clinked against ceramic. An old jukebox hummed Patsy Cline softly. Nobody noticed the black Mercedes pulling up outside. Not yet. Ariel Brooks wiped down the counter, humming under her breath. 27. Double shifts, 6 days a week. Her brother's medical bills wouldn't pay themselves. She didn't know her life was about to detonate. The door swung open. Elliot Crestwell walked in like he owned the oxygen. Charcoal suit. Italian leather shoes. Watch worth more than most people's mortgage. He didn't look at anyone. He assessed them. His eyes swept the diner. Peeling paint, cracked vinyl booths, working-class exhaustion. He wrinkled his nose. Disgusting. Ariel turned, smiled. Warm, professional. Good morning, sir. Seat yourself anywhere. He brushed past her like she was furniture. Walked straight to the corner booth. Her section. She followed, notepad ready. Can I get you started with? Coffee. Black. Now. His tone could have frozen fire. Ariel nodded. Coming right up. She turned. And one more thing. She stopped. Elliot didn't look up from his phone. Try not to hover. I have important business today. A truck or two booths over glanced up. Ariel's jaw tightened. But she smiled anyway. Of course, sir. She poured the coffee, hands steady even though her pulse wasn't. When she returned, Elliot was already on a call. Loud. Deliberate. Yeah, $3 billion. Signed by noon. Easy money. Heads turned. He wanted them to hear. Ariel set the mug down gently. He didn't acknowledge her. Just kept talking. These small-town people wouldn't understand real wealth. They survive because men like me allow it. Her fingers curled into her apron. The trucker muttered a curse. A mother covered her daughter's ears. Elliot smirked. Ariel took a breath. Started to walk away. Then he said it. Loud. Clear. Cruel. Pathetic. She froze mid-step. He still wasn't looking at her. But everyone else was. And in the far corner booth, unnoticed, unbothered, sat a man in a plain gray sweater. Older. Black. Quiet as stone. Harold Hawk Whitmore. He sipped his coffee slowly. His eyes tracked everything. He didn't move. Didn't speak. But his jaw tightened. Just once. Nobody in that diner knew it yet. But this morning was about to cost one billionaire everything he thought he owned. What would you do if someone treated you like that in public? Ariel stood frozen for 3 seconds. The word pathetic still hung in the air like cigarette smoke. She turned back. Professional. Calm. Sir, is there something wrong with your coffee? Elliot finally looked up. His eyes were cold, surgical. The coffee's fine. He leaned back, phone still in hand. It's everything else that's substandard. The trucker slammed his mug down. Ariel's heart hammered. But she kept her voice steady. I apologize if. Do you know what I'm worth? She blinked. He didn't wait for an answer. More than this entire town. Combined. He said it like he was stating the weather. Casual cruelty. A teenage busboy near the kitchen door stopped mid-step. Elliot gestured vaguely at the diner. Places like this, they exist because men like me allow capital to trickle down. His smirk widened. You should be grateful I even walked in here. Ariel felt heat crawl up her neck. Not embarrassment. Rage. But her mother's voice echoed in her skull. Dignity is the one thing they can't take unless you hand it over. So she didn't bite. She nodded once. I'll check on your orders soon, sir. Turned to leave. Wait. She stopped again. Elliot's tone shifted, sharper now. What's your name? Ariel. Ariel what? Brooks. He typed it into his phone. Slowly. Deliberately. Ariel Brooks. He repeated, like filing her away. Her stomach dropped. Good. Now I know who to mention when I speak to your manager. Silence. Total. Suffocating. Every eye in the diner locked on them. Ariel's throat tightened, but she didn't look away. I haven't done anything wrong, sir. Elliot laughed. Sharp. Ugly. You exist in my line of sight. That's enough. The mother with the little girl stood up, grabbed her daughter's hand, and walked out. The door chimed behind them. Elliot didn't notice, or didn't care. He went back to his phone, dismissive, like she was a fly he'd swatted. Ariel turned, walked toward the counter. Her hands trembled, not from fear, from fury she couldn't release. The busboy whispered, "You okay?" She nodded, lied, and across the room, Hawk Whitmore set his coffee down, still silent, still watching. His fingers drummed once against the table. Slow, steady, dangerous, because humiliation has a way of echoing, and some people hear everything. Ever been humiliated in public by someone who thought they were untouchable? 2 minutes later, Ariel approached his table again. Order pad ready. Sir, we're a little busy this morning. I'll need to take your... Busy. Elliot glanced around theatrically. 7 customers. Maybe 8. This is busy. He laughed, loud, mocking. God, you people really do live in a different world. Ariel's jaw clenched. Would you like to order breakfast, sir? He ignored the question, leaned back, arms crossed. Let me guess. You've worked here, what, 5 years? 3. 3. He nodded slowly, like diagnosing a disease. And you probably think that's impressive. She said nothing. He leaned forward. You make what? $9, $10 an hour? Her silence was answer enough. I make that every second. He snapped his fingers. Literally. Every second. The trucker stood up now, fists balled. His buddy grabbed his arm, shook his head. Don't. Elliot didn't even notice. He was locked on Ariel. Do you understand how insignificant you are? His voice dropped, quieter now, but sharper, more personal. You serve eggs. I move markets. You ask people what they want for breakfast. I decide what entire companies are worth. He tilted his head. So when I tell you to move, girl, you move. The word girl landed like a slap. Ariel felt her nails dig into her palm. But she stood tall. Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to wait your turn. There's a line forming. I don't wait. He reached into his wallet, pulled out a $1 bill, held it up between 2 fingers, then flicked it. It fluttered through the air and landed on her apron, stuck there for a moment, then slid to the floor. The diner went dead silent. Not a fork moved, not a breath. Elliot smirked. There, don't faint. It's probably the biggest tip you'll ever see. Ariel stared at the dollar on the floor. Her chest rose, fell. She looked up, met his eyes, and said the words that would crack his world in half. Sir, you must leave now. Gasps rippled through the room. Someone whispered. She just ended her job. Elliot's smirk faded, replaced by something colder, darker. What did you just say to me? Ariel didn't flinch. I said you need to leave. His face went red, and across the diner, Hawk Whitmore's coffee mug touched the table. Softly, but everyone heard it. Would you have stayed silent, or spoken up? Time slowed. Every customer locked eyes on the scene. The busboy stood paralyzed, dish rag dangling from his hand. The cook peeked through the kitchen window, spatula frozen mid-flip. Nobody moved, because nobody tells a billionaire to leave, especially not a waitress making $11.50 an hour. Elliot rose slowly from the booth. 6'2", tailored suit stretching as he stood. He looked down at Ariel like she was an insect. You're making a mistake. His voice was ice. Ariel didn't step back, but her hands trembled behind her order pad. Our policy is clear, sir. We don't serve customers who... I don't care about your policy. He stepped closer. She smelled his cologne. Expensive, suffocating. Do you know who I am? Yes, sir. Then you know I can make one phone call and have this place shut down by tomorrow. Her pulse hammered in her ears. But she didn't blink. That's not my decision to make, sir. Elliot's jaw twitched. Then get me someone whose decision it is. From the back office, the manager appeared. Gary Feldman, mid-50s, thinning hair, permanent worry lines. He saw Elliot, saw Ariel, saw the dollar bill still lying on the floor. His face went pale. Is there a problem here? Elliot turned, smiling now, victorious. Yes, your employee just tried to throw me out. Gary's eyes darted to Ariel. She held his gaze. Steady, pleading silently. Back me up. Just this once. Gary opened his mouth, closed it, looked at Elliot's watch, his shoes, his cold, entitled smirk, then looked back at Ariel and hesitated. The diner held its breath. Ariel felt her heart sink because she knew that look. Fear. Gary was afraid of lawsuits, bad reviews, corporate pressure, of men like Elliot Crestwell. She was about to lose her job. Her brother's medical bills flashed through her mind. Rent, groceries, everything. But she still didn't move, didn't apologize, because her mother's voice wouldn't let her. Dignity is the one thing they can't take unless you hand it over. Elliot crossed his arms, confident now. Well, Gary swallowed hard, opened his mouth to speak, and then a voice cut through the room like a knife through glass. She's right. Every head snapped toward the corner booth, toward the man in the plain gray sweater. Hawk Whitmore stood, slowly, powerfully. His presence filled the room, and Elliot Crestwell's face went white. Elliot froze. His confident smirk cracked, just slightly, because he recognized that voice. But he couldn't place it. Not yet. Hawk didn't move closer. Didn't need to. Authority radiated from him like heat from asphalt in August. Elliot recovered quickly, ego snapping back into place like armor. He turned, forced a laugh. Excuse me. Hawk's eyes were calm, deadly calm. I said she's right. You should leave. Elliot's face flushed red. And who the hell are you? Silence. Hawk didn't answer, just stared. Elliot bristled. You know what? I don't care. He turned back to Gary, voice rising. I've had breakfast with senators. I've closed deals with Fortune 100 CEOs. He jabbed a finger toward Ariel. And you think some nobody waitress gets to tell me where I can sit? Gary stammered. Sir, I know Marcus Hale, governor's chief of staff. Elliot pulled out his phone, waving it like a weapon. One call. That's all it takes. He sneered at Ariel. Your little moral stand? It'll cost everyone here their jobs. The cook ducked back into the kitchen. The trucker muttered a curse under his breath. Elliot's voice boomed now, performed for the room. This diner? This town? It survives because men like me allow it to exist. He turned in a slow circle, addressing everyone. We build the economy. We create opportunity. We fund your schools, your roads, your pathetic little lives. He pointed at Ariel again. And she wants to lecture me about respect? His laugh was cruel, sharp. Subscribe now, because people like this don't disappear. They multiply. Ariel's hands balled into fists. But she didn't speak, didn't move. Elliot stepped closer to her, towering. You want me to leave? His voice dropped to a whisper, but everyone heard it. Make me. The challenge hung in the air. Ugly. Venomous. Gary looked like he wanted to sink through the floor. Ariel's breath came shallow. She opened her mouth. And Hawk spoke again. Louder this time. Elliot Crestwell. Elliot spun. Hawk said his name like he was reading a death certificate. You talk too much. Elliot's eyes narrowed. How do you know my? Then it hit him. His face went slack. Color drained. Because now he recognized the man in the gray sweater. And his entire world just tilted sideways. If you're not subscribed yet, drop a comment. What's stopping you? Elliot's recognition flickered across his face. But he didn't speak. Not yet. Because pride wouldn't let him retreat. Not in front of these people. He straightened his shoulders. Forced the smirk back. I don't care who you think you are, he said to Hawk, voice tight. This is between me and the staff. Hawk said nothing. Just watched. Like a judge observing a defendant dig his own grave. Elliot turned back to Ariel, desperate now to regain control. You really want to die on this hill? His voice was quieter now. Almost a plea wrapped in venom. Over what? Principle. Ariel met his eyes. Didn't waver. Yes. One word. But it landed like thunder. The trucker grinned. The busboy stood taller. Even Gary looked stunned. Elliot's jaw clenched. You're throwing away your job. Your income. For nothing. Ariel's voice stayed calm. Steady. Our policy says we don't serve abusive customers. She took a breath. Sir, you need to leave. The repetition hit harder this time. Because she wasn't yelling. Wasn't crying. Wasn't begging him to understand. She was just firm. Unshakable. Elliot leaned in close. So close she could see the rage trembling in his pupils. Do you know what I could do to you? His whisper was a threat. A promise. I could destroy you with one phone call. Ruin your credit. Get you blacklisted. Make sure no one in this state ever hires you again. Ariel's heart pounded. Her hands went cold. But she didn't step back. She thought of her brother. 13 years old. Lupus treatments twice a week. She thought of her mother's grave. The words carved into the stone. Stand tall, even when the world kneels on your neck. And she whispered back, then I'll stand somewhere else. Elliot blinked, stunned, because he'd thrown everything at her. Power, money, threats. And she hadn't broken. Subscribe, because dignity like this is rare. Don't miss what happens next. The diner was silent. Reverent, almost. Gary stared at Ariel like he was seeing her for the first time. The cook crossed his arms, nodding slowly. Even Hawk's expression softened. Just barely. Elliot realized it too late. He'd lost the room. Not because of what he said, but because of what she refused to do. Bend. And that terrified him more than anything. Elliot's face twisted. Humiliation mixed with fury. A toxic cocktail. He stepped forward, closing the space between them. Ariel's back hit the edge of the booth. Nowhere left to retreat. He loomed over her. 6 inches taller. 50 pounds heavier. You think you're brave, he hissed. His breath was hot. Bitter. You think standing up to me makes you special? Ariel's pulse hammered in her throat. But she kept her chin up. Elliot leaned closer. So close his voice was only for her. I can destroy your life in one phone call. He pulled out his phone. Held it up. One. Call. The diner watched in horror. Gary stepped forward. Finally. Sir, please. Shut up. Elliot didn't even look at him. His eyes stayed locked on Ariel. I know people. Real people. Judges. Lawyers. Debt collectors. His smile was cruel. How much do you owe, Ariel Brooks? Medical bills? Student loans? Her stomach dropped. How did he? I can make those numbers grow. I can make sure you're drowning by next week. He tilted his head. Or. He slipped his phone back into his pocket. You apologize. Right now? In front of everyone. His voice was silk over razors. Get on your knees. Say you're sorry. And maybe, I let this go. Gasps rippled through the diner. The trucker stood up, fists clenched. His buddy grabbed him again. Don't. He'll sue you into the ground. Ariel's hands shook. Not from fear. From rage she couldn't unleash. Elliot saw the tremor. Mistook it for weakness. He smiled wider. That's what I thought. He straightened his tie. Victorious. Now? Kneel. Silence. Thick. Choking. Ariel looked at Gary. At the trucker. At the busboy. At the customers who'd watched her serve them coffee every morning for 3 years. She thought about her brother. About rent. About everything she'd lose. And then, she looked Elliot Crestwell in the eye. And said 2 words. No. The room exploded in whispers. Elliot's face went purple. You stupid. Enough. Hawk's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. He stepped forward. Calm. Controlled. Lethal. And Elliot Crestwell finally realized. He'd just made the worst mistake of his life. If someone threatened you like this, would you fold or fight? Comment below. Subscribe so you don't miss the moment he falls. Hawk Whitmore stood in the center of the diner. Unremarkable gray sweater. Worn jeans. Leather boots that had seen decades of use. Nothing flashy. Nothing expensive. But when he moved, the room shifted with him. He'd been watching since the moment Elliot walked in. Watching the sneer. The condescension. The casual cruelty of a man who'd never been told no. Hawk knew the type. He'd built an empire dismantling men exactly like Elliot Crestwell. Arrogant. Entitled. Hollow. And now this fool had no idea who was standing 10 feet away. Hawk's eyes swept the diner. The terrified manager. The furious trucker. The busboy clutching his dish rag like a lifeline. And Ariel. Still standing. Still refusing to kneel. He saw her hands trembling. Saw the fear she was swallowing. But also the steel in her spine. That, he thought, is rare. Most people broke under pressure. Bent. Apologized. Sacrificed dignity for survival. Not her. Hawk had been poor once. Knew what it meant to choose between pride and a paycheck. He'd worked double shifts in factories. Slept in his car. Ate 1 meal a day so his sister could have 2. And he remembered, vividly, the men who looked at him the way Elliot was looking at Ariel now. Like he was nothing. He swore back then, if I ever get power, I'll use it to break men like that. And now, fate handed him the opportunity on a silver platter. Elliot still hadn't turned around. Too busy threatening Ariel. Too drunk on his own venom to notice the predator behind him. Hawk's jaw tightened. His fingers curled, just once, into fists. Then relaxed. Control. Always control. He glanced at the black leather folder on his corner table. Inside, a $3 billion contract. Elliot's future. His legacy. All of it waiting for one signature. Hawk had flown in from Charlotte, North Carolina, for this meeting. 7:45 a.m. Maple Ridge Diner. Neutral ground. Elliot requested it. Wanted to show he was a man of the people. Ironic. Hawk almost smiled. Almost. But then Elliot raised his voice again. You're nobody, you understand me? Nobody. And Hawk decided. Right there. No contract. No deal. No mercy. Subscribe now. Justice is about to be served, and you don't want to miss a second. Elliot pulled out his wallet again. This time, he counted bills. Slowly. Deliberately. 100. 200. 3. He fanned them out like a deck of cards. You know what? I'm feeling generous. His voice dripped with mock kindness. $300. Cash. Right now. He held the bills up high, so everyone could see. All you have to do is pick up that dollar you dropped. He pointed to the crumpled bill still lying on the floor. Pick it up. Apologize. And this is yours. Ariel stared at the money. $300. 2 weeks' pay. Her brother's next co-pay. Groceries for a month. Elliot dangled it like bait. Come on, Ariel. Don't be stupid. Just take it. He crouched down, picked up the dollar himself, held it out to her. Or is your pride really worth more than feeding yourself? The trucker slammed his fist on the table. That's enough. Elliot whipped around. Sit. Down. His voice was venom. The trucker's buddy pulled him back into his seat. Elliot turned back to Ariel. Stepped closer. So close she could see the veins in his neck pulsing. You're pretending you have power here, he whispered, but loud enough for the room to hear. But we both know the truth. He waved the dollar in front of her face. You're a servant. That's all you'll ever be. He dropped the dollar. Let it flutter to the ground again. Then, he pulled out another bill. Dropped it. Then another. And another. Bills scattered across the floor like confetti. There, he said, smiling. Now you can crawl around and pick them up like the help you are. Ariel's vision blurred. Not from tears. From pure, molten rage. Her hands balled into fists so tight her nails bit into her palms. The diner was dead silent. No one breathed. Elliot laughed. Loud, ugly, triumphant. That's what I thought. All talk, no. Step. Back. Hawk's voice was quiet, but it cut through the room like a gunshot. Elliot spun around, finally, face to face with the man he'd been ignoring. And for the first time in 20 years, Elliot Crestwell felt fear. Ariel stood frozen. Bills scattered at her feet like leaves after a storm. Her chest heaved, breath coming shallow and fast. Don't cry. Don't give him that. But her eyes burned anyway. Not from shame. From the sheer weight of holding everything in. 3 years. 3 years of waking up at 5 a.m. Smiling through rude customers. Ignoring the wandering hands and condescending remarks. All for her brother. For Malik. 13 years old. Bright smile. Lupus ravaging his kidneys. She thought of him in that hospital bed last Tuesday. Tubes in his arms. Asking her, Ari, are we going to be okay? And she'd lied. Smiled. Said always. But the truth? She was one missed shift away from losing everything. And now, this man was trying to take the only thing she had left. Her dignity. Elliot smirked, watching her internal war. He thought he'd won. Ariel's hands trembled at her sides. Her throat tightened. She looked at the money on the floor. Looked at Gary, still silent, still useless. Looked at the other customers, sympathetic, but paralyzed. Nobody was coming to save her. She was alone, just like always. Pick it up, a voice whispered in her head. Swallow your pride. You need this. Her knees almost buckled. Almost. But then, she heard her mother's voice. Clear. Strong. Unshakable. Baby, they can take your money. Your job. Your home. But they can't take who you are, unless you let them. Ariel closed her eyes. Took one deep breath. Opened them. And when she looked at Elliot Crestwell, her fear was gone. Replaced by something colder. Sharper. Unbreakable. She bent down slowly. Elliot's grin widened. There it is. Submission. But Ariel didn't pick up the money. She picked up her order pad. Straightened. Met his eyes. And said, calm, clear, final. Sir, for the last time. You need to leave. The diner erupted in whispers. Someone gasped. The trucker stood again. This time his buddy didn't stop him. Elliot's face went red. Then purple. You little. That's enough. Hawk stepped forward. Right between them. His presence was a wall. Immovable. Elliot's mouth snapped shut. And the entire room, everyone, turned to watch what happened next. If you're still not subscribed, what are you waiting for? This is about to explode. Hawk stood between Elliot and Ariel. Not aggressive, not loud, just there. And somehow that was more terrifying than any threat. Elliot looked up. They were the same height. But Hawk's presence made him feel small. Move, Elliot said, trying to sound commanding. Failing. Hawk didn't move, didn't blink, just stared. The kind of stare that stripped away excuses, lies, pretense. Elliot shifted his weight. Uncomfortable now. I said move. Hawk's voice came low, measured. You've said a lot of things this morning. Elliot's jaw tightened. This doesn't concern you. It does now. Hawk tilted his head slightly. See, I've been sitting here, watching. He gestured toward his corner booth. Listening to you talk about wealth, power, importance. Elliot's eyes flicked toward the booth. Saw the coffee mug, the leather folder on the table. Something clicked. Wrong. Something was wrong. And I've been wondering, Hawk continued, voice calm as still water. What kind of man measures his worth by how small he can make others feel? The diner was silent, breathless. Elliot's hands curled into fists. Who the hell do you think? I think, Hawk interrupted. You've confused money with character. His words landed like body blows. You've confused a title with respect. Step closer. And you've confused fear with power. Elliot's face flushed red. You don't know who I am. Hawk's expression didn't change. Elliot Crestwell, son of Robert Crestwell, inherited Crestwell Capital at 29. Tripled revenue in 6 years through aggressive acquisitions. Elliot froze. You have 3 ex-wives, 2 pending lawsuits, and a reputation for burning bridges. Hawk's eyes were cold, empty. You're here this morning for a meeting. Elliot's stomach dropped. A very important meeting. No. With someone you've never met in person. No. Hawk leaned in, just slightly. Someone who doesn't waste time on men who treat people like garbage. Elliot's breath caught. His face went white. You? Hawk nodded once. Slow. Final. Me. The room exploded in gasps. Ariel's eyes went wide. Gary's mouth fell open. The trucker whispered, holy shit. And Elliot Crestwell, Wall Street royalty, billionaire, untouchable, looked like he'd been punched in the chest. Elliot's knees almost buckled. His mouth opened, closed. No sound came out. Harold Hawk Whitmore. The Hawk Whitmore. Self-made billionaire. Wall Street legend. The man who turned $3,000 into $4.7 billion in 30 years. The ghost who never did interviews. Never appeared at galas. Never flaunted wealth. And Elliot had just spent 10 minutes humiliating a waitress in front of him. His hands started shaking. I didn't. Hawk said nothing. Just watched. Like a surgeon observing a tumor. Elliot's eyes darted to the leather folder on Hawk's table. The contract. Their contract. $3 billion. The deal that would cement his legacy. Expand Crestwell Capital into 6 new markets. Secure his name in financial history. All of it, sitting 15 feet away. And he'd ignored it. Ignored him. Elliot swallowed hard. Tried to smile. Failed. Mr. Whitmore. I apologize. I didn't realize. You didn't realize what? Hawk's tone was surgical. Precise. That I was here? Or that your behavior was unacceptable? Elliot's mouth went dry. She was doing her job. Hawk glanced at Ariel. She stood frozen, eyes wide, still processing. And you? Hawk continued, turning back to Elliot. We're doing exactly what men like you always do. His voice dropped. Colder. Using power as a weapon. Elliot's face crumbled. The arrogance evaporated. Replaced by desperation. Sir, please. Let me explain. Explain what? Hawk gestured toward the money scattered on the floor. Explain why you threw cash at her like she was a dog. Elliot flinched. Explain why you threatened her job? Her livelihood. Each word was a nail in a coffin. Explain why you thought humiliating her would make you important. Silence. Total, crushing silence. Elliot looked around. At the customers staring at him with disgust. At Gary, shaking his head slowly. At Ariel, standing tall despite everything. And finally, back at Hawk. The man who held his future in his hands. Hawk didn't yell. Didn't need to. He just stood there. Unmoved. Unimpressed. And Elliot Crestwell realized. He'd already lost. Hawk turned. Walked slowly back to his booth. Every eye followed him. He picked up the black leather folder. Heavy. Embossed with gold lettering. Whitmore Capital Group. Elliot's breath hitched. He'd seen that logo 100 times in emails. Conference calls. Legal briefs. But never in person. Never this close. Hawk opened the folder. Papers inside. Crisp, white, official. Contracts. Addendums. Signature lines waiting to be filled. $3 billion. The number sat at the top of the first page in bold print. Elliot could see it from 10 feet away. His entire future. Right there. Hawk flipped through the pages slowly. Methodically. Like he was reading a restaurant menu. Not the deal of Elliot's career. Elliot stepped forward. Mr. Whitmore. Hawk raised one finger. Didn't look up. Elliot stopped mid-step. The diner watched in silence. Hawk turned another page. Then another. His face revealed nothing. No anger. No disappointment. Just cold, clinical assessment. Finally, he looked up. Met Elliot's eyes. I've spent 6 months vetting you. His voice was calm. Even. Terrifying. Financial records. Market reputation. Leadership style. He tapped the folder. Everything checked out on paper. Elliot felt hope flicker. But paper, Hawk continued, doesn't tell me how you treat people when you think no one important is watching. The hope died. Hawk closed the folder. The sound echoed like a gunshot. I built my wealth from nothing, Mr. Crestwell. He stood, folder in hand. Worked in factories. Cleaned floors. Served coffee. His eyes never left Elliot's. And I remember every man who looked at me the way you just looked at her. He nodded toward Ariel. Elliot's throat tightened. Mr. Whitmore, please, I made a mistake. I'll apologize. You'll what? Hawk's tone sharpened. Pretend to be a decent human being because I'm in the room? Elliot's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Hawk tucked the folder under his arm. That's not character, Mr. Crestwell. He stepped past him, heading toward the door. That's just fear. Elliot's world tilted. Wait. Hawk paused, didn't turn around, and the entire diner held its breath. Subscribe. You're about to witness a billionaire beg. Elliot's voice cracked. Please, don't do this. Hawk turned. Slowly. His face was stone. Do what exactly? Elliot's hands trembled. Walk away. I need this deal. You know I need it. Need it? Hawk's eyebrow raised. You were worth $900 million before this contract. He tilted his head. How much do you need? Elliot stammered. It's not about the money. Then what is it about? Silence. Elliot had no answer. Because they both knew the truth. It was about ego. Legacy. Proving he was more than his father's name. Hawk stepped closer. Voice low, but everyone heard it. I've met 1,000 men like you, Elliot. His words cut clean. Smart. Educated. Connected. He paused. Empty. Elliot flinched like he'd been slapped. You think wealth makes you important, Hawk continued. But it doesn't. He glanced at Ariel, still standing behind the counter. Watching. She worked a double shift yesterday. Did it again today. Hawk looked back at Elliot. For her brother. Medical bills she can't afford. Elliot's eyes widened. How did he? I asked. Hawk said simply. Because I care about people I do business with. He let that sink in. You didn't ask her a single question. You just assumed she was beneath you. The diner was silent. Reverent. Hawk's voice rose, just slightly. Enough for everyone to feel it. I back people who treat workers with dignity. He looked around the room. At Gary. The trucker. The busboy. People who understand that respect isn't about wealth. His eyes locked back on Elliot. It's about character. Elliot's face crumbled. I'll change. I swear. You'll change because I'm watching? Hawk shook his head. That's not change. That's performance. He turned back toward the door. Mr. Whitmore, please. Hawk stopped, looked over his shoulder, and said the words that shattered Elliot Crestwell's world. I don't partner with people like you. He opened the folder, pulled out the contract, and in front of 30 witnesses, started tearing. Slowly, deliberately, page by page. The first tear echoed through the diner. Paper ripping. Slow. Intentional. $3 billion reduced to confetti. Elliot lunged forward. No, stop. Hawk didn't stop. Another page. Ripped clean down the middle. Elliot grabbed for the folder. Hawk stepped back, effortless. Like avoiding a child's tantrum. Tear. Another page gone. Elliot's voice broke. You can't. You don't understand. I need this. You need humility, Hawk said calmly. Tear. The partnership agreement. Gone. You need perspective. Tear. The expansion clause. Destroyed. Elliot fell to his knees. Actually knees. The man who demanded Ariel do the same 20 minutes ago. Please, he whispered. I'll do anything. Hawk looked down at him. No pity. No satisfaction. Just cold, final judgment. You had your chance. He tore the signature page. The last piece. Let the scraps fall to the floor like snow. They scattered across the tiles, landing near the dollar bills Elliot had thrown at Ariel. Poetic. Devastating. The diner erupted. Not in cheers, but in stunned, breathless silence. Gary covered his mouth. The trucker's eyes were wide, disbelieving. The busboy whispered, "Holy hell." And Ariel? She stood perfectly still, tears streaming down her face. Not from sadness. From relief. From vindication. From the sheer, overwhelming weight of being seen. Elliot stared at the torn pages. His legacy, his future, scattered like garbage. He looked up at Hawk, desperate, hollow. "I'm ruined." Hawk's expression didn't change. "No, you're just not richer." He crouched down. "Eye level now." Voice quiet. Deadly. "But that waitress you humiliated?" He nodded toward Ariel. "She's been ruined every day of her life by men like you." He stood, brushed off his hands. "And she's still standing." Elliot said nothing. There was nothing left to say. Hawk turned, walked toward Ariel. The crowd parted like water. And Elliot Crestwell, billionaire, Wall Street titan, untouchable, stayed on his knees. Broken. Elliot stayed on the floor, hands shaking, breathing ragged, his $4,000 suit wrinkled, knees pressed against sticky diner tile. He looked at the torn contract pieces, reached for one, held it like a dying thing. You can't." His voice was hollow, empty. Hawk didn't look back. Elliot's face twisted. Desperation morphed into rage. He stood, stumbling. "You think you're better than me?" His voice cracked. "I'll sue you. I'll call my lawyers." Hawk stopped walking. Didn't turn around. "Call them." 2 words. Calm as morning coffee. Elliot pulled out his phone, hands trembling so badly he nearly dropped it. He dialed. Waited. Marcus, it's Elliot. I need." His voice broke. "I need you to." Whatever the person said made him go pale. "What do you mean you can't?" Pause. "And oh, don't you dare." The line went dead. Elliot stared at his phone. Tried another number. Voicemail. Another. Same. Each rejection hit like a physical blow. His network, the web of connections he'd spent 20 years building, evaporating. Because news traveled fast in their world. And nobody backed a man Hawk Whitmore walked away from. Elliot's phone slipped from his hand, clattered on the floor. He looked around the diner, at the faces staring back. Disgust, pity, satisfaction. The trucker smiled, cold and mean. "How's it feel?" Elliot's jaw trembled. I didn't mean." His voice was barely a whisper now. The arrogance gone. The cruelty stripped away. What was left? A scared, small man, who'd confused money with worth, power with respect. He looked at Ariel. She stood tall, tears dried, eyes clear, still dignified, still strong. Everything he wasn't. "I'm sorry," he whispered. But it was too late. And they both knew it. Gary finally spoke. Voice steady. "You need to leave." Elliot opened his mouth, closed it, nodded. He bent down, picked up his phone with shaking hands, turned toward the door. Each step looked like it cost him something. The door chimed as he pushed it open. And Elliot Crestwell walked out into the Georgia morning. A billionaire, but worth nothing. Subscribe, because dignity just destroyed a fortune, and we're not done yet. The door closed behind Elliot. Silence filled the diner. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Then, Hawk turned to Ariel. She stood behind the counter, still gripping her order pad, knuckles white. He walked toward her, slowly, every step deliberate. The room watched. Ariel's breath caught. She didn't know what to expect. Gratitude? Pity? Nothing. Hawk stopped in front of her, reached into his pocket, pulled out a simple white business card. Heavy cardstock, black lettering. Harold Whitmore, founder and CEO, Whitmore Capital Group. He held it between 2 fingers, offered it to her. "You handled yourself with strength today." His voice was quiet, respectful. "That's rare." Ariel took the card, her hands still trembling. "I don't understand." "I run a company built on one principle," Hawk said. "Character first, credentials second." He glanced around the diner, at the peeling paint, the worn booths, the life she'd been grinding through. "You've got more character in your backbone than most executives I've met." Ariel's eyes filled. "Sir, I'm just a waitress." "No." Hawk's tone was firm, kind. "You're someone who stood up when it mattered." He tapped the card in her hand. "Come see me tomorrow. 10 a.m. Charlotte office." Her breath stopped. "I have a position open." Executive training program. Her knees almost gave out. Pays $70,000 starting. Full benefits. Your brother's medical expenses covered. Ariel's tears spilled over. She couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. Hawk's expression softened, just slightly. You've earned this. He stepped back. Looked at Gary. She's got the day off tomorrow. Paid. Gary nodded fast. Yes, sir. Absolutely. Hawk turned back to Ariel one last time. Don't be late. The diner erupted. Not loud, but powerful. Quiet claps. Murmurs of disbelief. The trucker wiped his eyes. The busboy grinned wide. And Ariel stared at the card in her hands. Her whole life changed in one morning because she refused to kneel. For 3 seconds, nothing. Then, the trucker stood, started clapping. Slow, steady. His buddy joined. Then the cook burst through the kitchen door, applauding. The busboy, the elderly couple in the corner booth. The mother who'd left earlier, she'd come back, standing in the doorway. Everyone. The diner filled with applause. Not wild, not loud, but real, respectful, reverent. Ariel covered her mouth, tears streaming. The trucker walked over, extended his hand. Ma'am, that was the bravest thing I've seen in 20 years. She shook it, her grip weak from emotion. Thank you. He nodded, tipped his hat, walked back to his booth. The busboy approached next. 17. Shy. Always quiet. Miss Brooks, I want to be like you when I grow up. She laughed through tears. You already are, sweetie. Gary stepped forward. Awkward. Ashamed. Ariel, He stopped. Swallowed hard. I should have backed you up. She looked at him. Waited. I was scared, he admitted. Of losing the diner. Of lawsuits. I know. Her voice was soft. Not angry. Just tired. Gary nodded. You're the best employee I've ever had. And I'm sorry I didn't show it when it mattered. He reached into his apron. Pulled out an envelope. This week's tips. Plus next week's in advance. He handed it to her. Take tomorrow off. Hell, take the week. Ariel stared at the envelope. Shook her head. Mr. Feldman, I can't. You can, he said firmly. You earned it. She took it. Whispered, thank you. The cook called from the kitchen. Breakfast on me today, Ari. Cheers erupted. Small. Warm. Like family. Ariel looked around the diner. This place she'd worked for 3 years. Bled for. Cried in. It wasn't much. But it was hers. And today, it became the place where she learned something powerful. Dignity doesn't ask permission. It just stands. The applause faded. Customers returned to their meals. But everything felt different. Lighter. The air itself seemed cleaner. Ariel looked down at Hawk's card. Then at the money Gary gave her. Then at the faces around her, smiling, proud. And for the first time in months, she let herself believe. Maybe things can get better. Ariel untied her apron. Slowly, her fingers worked the knot like she was in a dream. 3 years. 3 years of wearing this thing. Coffee stains. Grease smudges. A small burn mark from when she'd backed into the grill. She folded it carefully. Set it on the counter. Gary watched. You coming back? She looked at him. Smiled, small, genuine. I don't know yet. Honest. Not bitter. Just true. She picked up Hawk's business card. Ran her thumb over the embossed letters. Whitmore Capital Group. Charlotte, North Carolina. A different world. A different life. Waiting. She thought about Malik. Pictured his face when she told him. No more medical bills, baby. We're gonna be okay. Her chest tightened. But this time, from hope. Not fear. Ariel walked toward the door. The diner watched her go. Nobody said goodbye. They didn't need to. This wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. She pushed the door open. Stepped into the morning sunlight. Warm on her face. The air smelled like rain coming. Fresh. Clean. She looked back through the glass one last time. Saw the booths. The counter. The people who'd witnessed everything. And she didn't feel anger. Didn't feel triumph. Just peace. Because real revenge doesn't scream. It doesn't gloat. It doesn't need an audience. Real revenge is standing tall when the world expects you to break. It's walking away with your dignity intact. It's knowing your worth, even when someone tries to convince you otherwise. She slipped the business card into her pocket. Started walking toward her car. A 2004 Honda Civic. Dented bumper. Check engine light permanently on. But it was hers. And tomorrow? Tomorrow she'd drive it to Charlotte. To an office she'd never seen. To a future she'd never imagined. Not because someone handed it to her, but because she earned it. one act of courage at a time. Behind her, inside the diner, the torn contract pieces still lay scattered on the floor, next to crumpled dollar bills. A monument to arrogance. A reminder, money can't buy character, and power without respect is just noise. Ariel got in her car, closed the door, and for the first time in 3 years, she cried. Not from pain, from relief. If you were her, would you go back to the diner, or take the leap? Tell us below. Hawk Whitmore stood outside the diner, morning sun climbing higher. He pulled out his phone, dialed. Cancel the Crestwell acquisition, he said quietly. All of it. Pause. Because character matters more than capital. He hung up, slipped the phone back into his pocket. His driver pulled up, black sedan, discreet. Hawk glanced back through the diner window one last time. Saw Ariel gathering her things, smiling through tears. He nodded to himself. Good. The world had enough Elliots. It needed more Ariels. He got in the car. Airport, he told the driver. And just like that, he was gone. Inside, Elliot sat in his Mercedes, parked across the street, hands gripping the steering wheel, knuckles white. His phone buzzed. Ignored calls, angry emails, investors pulling out, partners distancing, board members demanding explanations. All because Hawk Whitmore walked away. One decision, one morning. His entire empire, shaking, not destroyed, but damaged. Permanently. He stared at the diner, at the people inside laughing, eating, living, the people he'd called insignificant. And he realized they'd forgotten him already. But he'd remember this morning for the rest of his life. Ariel drove toward home, hands steady on the wheel, Hawk's business card on the passenger seat. She thought about calling Malik, telling him everything. But she'd wait. She wanted to see his face, wanted to hold him when she said it. We're gonna be okay, baby. Her phone buzzed. A text from Gary. You're welcome back anytime. But I hope you never need to come back. She smiled. Typed back. Thank you. For everything. She pulled into her apartment complex, climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor, unlocked the door. Malik looked up from the couch, thin, pale, but smiling. How was work? She set down her purse, walked over, sat beside him, took his hand. It was the best shift of my life. Narrator. Sometimes karma doesn't scream. It doesn't go viral. It doesn't need hashtags or headlines. Sometimes justice walks in quietly, sees everything, and leaves the world a little more balanced than it found it. The question is, when your moment comes, will you kneel or will you stand? What would you have done in her place? Comment below. Subscribe, because people who stand tall deserve witnesses.